Hey, Who fans, and welcome to the Big Blue Box podcast. My name's Gary.
My name's Adam.
And this is episode 410.
Yay!
Welcome to another episode, everybody. We hope you've had a cracking week and that you've all managed to do something Doctor Who related. Easy peasy, that one for me.
I've no idea because there's a massive delay. So I've no idea. Your voice, you know, sometimes when we get a delay and then it almost sounds like a tape recorder that's put on fast forward. Your voice keeps going really, really quick and then it comes back to real time. So I don't know. I'm slightly behind you at the minute, I reckon.
Yes, yeah, as is the case.
But it'll be cool. It'll sort itself. It'll settle.
It will, yes. So this is episode 410, as we've said. We've had a good one. We've had a busy week over the last week. We've been to a couple of events, which we will give you the rundown on, and then we have our review of the first Doctor story, which is half there, half missing, which is the Crusade. So we'll get on to our thoughts on that one shortly. Dude, we've had a good week, haven't we? We've been to a couple of events. There was one that you wasn't going to, but then you did bag a ticket and you got to that one, which is really good. And then we ended up at the BFI, which was eventful, to say the least. So let's start with the first one we did, which is on the bank holiday Monday here in the UK, which was the Doctor Who Proms at the Royal Albert Hall, which was really nice. And dude, as always, it was amazing hearing the Doctor Who soundtracks live with an orchestra and so on. It was awesome. Oh
man, it was incredible. I'm so glad I went, because you're right. I left it right up to the last minute. I kept checking the tickets, and because we'd got a few things coming up this month, I was just thinking I couldn't really afford it. I was like, I just can't afford to come up to London 3 times in the space of 3 weeks, sort of thing, because I've got Riverside Studios event this coming weekend. And I kept checking the tickets, really wanted to go. And then I noticed this thing on the Albert Hall website that said they released 1,000 tickets the day before for £8. And I was like, £8? I thought, this is too good to be true. And basically what it is it's a stand-in ticket. So you can either select one in the gods, right at the top of the Albert Hall, or they had some standing in the arena, which is the small little bit in the middle. So I went for those, and honestly, the best £8 I've ever spent, because I stood in the arena and I was right in the thick of it. When all the monsters came down during some of the musics, I was like, they were right in front of me. My view wasn't bad because you end up watching the screens most of the time anyway. And the Proms itself was fantastic, just to hear, that, that music played live and sang live. What would you call them? And what are those singers called? Like when they have the soloists, and are they baritones? I don't know what the correct name is for them, but outstanding.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah.
When they would do Rose and they'd do the ooh, and then note perfect, and you're like, wow, just to see someone standing there singing those pieces was amazing, mate. But what a great atmosphere as well. I mean, the Albert Hall is such a lovely venue to start with, and it's, to have it filled, and it was filled. I mean, it was absolutely packed, wasn't it? It was completely sold out, I would imagine. With Doctor Who fans, as the atmosphere was incredible. Yeah, it was great, wasn't it? And it's that's one of the cool things about seeing anything like that live. Anything Doctor Who related that's live. And we've seen it a few times now. We've been fortunate, haven't we, over the years to see the either the Proms or what's the other one, the Symphonic Spectacular, I think it was called. Yeah, so it's just amazing, dude, and a bit like when we
go to other events like Riverside or the BFI, which we'll come on to in a second, there's just something amazing about being in a huge space like that with other Who fans, and everyone's there. It's like you're there with your people, if that makes sense. You're there with with all the other people that are there to enjoy, and they love the same things that you do, and you've got that Doctor Who love, that love of the show in common with everybody, and it's amazing. And it's I don't know about you, dude, but I always get a bit emotional as well at these things. Yeah, there are just certain bits of music that cut, a little bit deeper than some of the other ones, and it's just amazing. The only thing I would say, dude, it was an amazing thing, the proms, and Catherine Tate was great, by the way, as host. She was amazing. She was really funny because she kept fluffing her lines as she was reading the big auto cue that was at the back. She kept messing that up, and she styled it out though. It was very cool. So she was really good. The only thing I would say is that we didn't get as much music from the classic era as I was hoping to hear. They pushed a lot, because in the previous years that we've been to, the proms and whatnot, they've generally had a good mix of modern era music and classic stuff. I think, if memory serves, that the last prom that they did, they even had Mark Ayres and some other another couple of guys there that. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they had the whole original setup that they would have used back in the day at the BBC, and they played a fair amount of music from the classic years. It went down really well, and it sounded amazing and stuff. So that's my only one little niggle. Not that it's a huge one, and I don't want to put a downer on the event as a whole. It was amazing, but yeah, I would just like to have heard a little bit more music from the classic era. But I get it. As we're in brand new era Doctor Who territory, they need to be pushing that stuff and all that. So I get it. I get why they played some more stuff. But yeah, it was amazing, dude. Very, very cool. And the National Philharmonic Orchestra of Wales was the orchestra, and I think it was the London Philharmonic Choir that joined them to do. But it was a great stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you about the classic bit. I must admit, I was looking forward to seeing like Mark Ayres and is it Peter Howell? I think, I can't remember. Like the last time, coming on, giving sort of the orchestra a break while they do their thing with their electronic keyboards from the 70s and stuff. I was really looking forward to that. We didn't get that at this prom. There was no classic music at all. Actually, it was all from sort of everything from 2005 onwards, which I guess is fair enough, because they have to include the latest era, which probably sort of bumps out the sort of classic era slot. But the classic Doctors were represented they were on screen during, how do you say it? What's the name of that piece? Validation. How do you say that?
Validation.
I think that was the piece, wasn't it, where they showed them all regenerating? Was it that?
It was, yeah.
Yeah. So they were represented, yeah.
Yeah, they normally reserve that music in the previous years for just the David Tennant regeneration, because it was, as we all know, for his regen, it was quite a big build-up, wasn't it? It was the whole... oh, God. I'm not going to cry. I'm not going to get into all that, but, when they do the song and will carry you back to the TARDIS and then all that stuff. So, yeah, amazing stuff. But, yeah, they did throw in all the other regens for that piece of music, which was lovely, and... They played some other bits that you didn't generally hear in previous years. They made a big thing of Capaldi's theme. I think it's called "I Am a Good Man" or "A Good Man" or something like that. Yeah, that was really nice. And they had the companion suite as well, and that was all good. And
I loved out of the newer ones. I loved Ruby's theme. That piano. I just think that is a beautiful piece of music, and all this sort of snow drifted down, didn't it, from the ceiling? That was really beautiful. I thought. We also had a nice appearance from Anita Dobson as Mrs. Flood. I thought that was a highlight as well, where she came on and was like, "Never seen a prom before." Thought that was pretty cool to see her on there. And we had a few monsters in the audience, didn't we? Like Cybermen and Jadoon, and what else did we have?
Oh yeah, Silence.
Silence, yeah.
The creepy dolls. Yeah, there was loads of stuff going on in the audience bit as well, which was cool. And the Mrs. Flood thing. It was really quite cryptic, some of the things she was saying, because Anita Dobson was doing it all in character as Mrs. Flood. But she did drop the She did drop the thing like everyone thinks I'm an intergalactic villain or something.
That's right.
So everybody thought, oh, right, you throwing us off the scent. Is this the Rani thing?
Yeah.
So that was interesting, but she was funny. Yeah. So her and Catherine Tate, they were good.
They were good. And I had Russell T Davies was quite close to me. He was in a box sat behind me, and I could hear him cackling all the way through. He was like, every time Catherine made a joke or Mrs. Flood or whatever, I could hear this sort of gargling cackle behind me. And I looked and it was Russell. He's obviously having a good time, obviously loving it. And it must be great for him to look out and see, see that there's still such a huge love for Doctor Who and all the people that are just having such a great time. And of course, it ended with twist at the end. And no matter what you think of that ending or that song, everyone was like jiving, and it was a real fun end to the event, I thought.
Yeah, in that context, it felt more like a kind of West End or Broadway show.
Definitely. That
kind of vibe. So in a theatre setting and all that lot, that song actually works because it's very stage show, very musical.
Yeah.
So it was kind of cool to see that at the end, and somebody came out, two people that actually sang it live, and loads of dancers in the audience and stuff. And yeah, it was cool. And then they finished with the newer version of the theme that's been with Shooty's era for the season. So yeah, it was a good one.
It's definitely recommended, isn't it? If anyone hasn't ever done a prom, especially if you can get an £8 ticket and you don't mind standing for 2 hours, because it was about 2 hours, wasn't it? So yeah, it's 100% recommended, isn't it? I'm so glad I went. I would have been gutted if I'd missed out, and I don't regret it for 1 second. It was brilliant.
Yeah, same. Yeah. So if they do it in the future, then I think it's been a few years since they last did it.
Yeah, I think it is.
Yeah, so hopefully they'll do that again in the next few years. Again, I can't imagine they'll do it next year, just because I don't think there's going to be enough new music that would have gone out in the meantime. So unless they just do a rinse and repeat, in any case, that would still be cool. But yeah. And our team member Maria, she was there as well, and by all accounts, she had a good one. So yes, that was good. So that was the BBC Proms at the Albert Hall. That was good. And then fast forward to the end of the week, Saturday just gone, we were at the BFI for the screening of The Happiness Patrol, which is to coincide with the upcoming release of the Blu-ray collection. So season 25, is it? I'm sure it's 25, yeah. So that's out in next month, I think, isn't it? The end of next month.
Yeah, end of October, yeah.
So that was really cool. And then that's the usual affair. Those of you that have not been to a BFI event before or whatever, the way it works is that it's a very cool cinema. It's not the big flashy IMAX one up the road. It's the one at South Bank, and it's a fairly old cinema, but it's very cool in there. And they normally have at these things, they have either people that were starred in the classic ep coupled with either the writer or director or someone. So that was cool. We had who was it? Chris Clough, who was the director. Was it Chris Clough?
Chris Clough, yeah.
Yep, the director. We had Sylvester McCoy, we had Sophie Aldred, and we had Dame
Sheila Hancock.
So thank you. Yes, who were on the panel. And then in between episodes 2 and 3, they also brought out the guy that was working on the original puppet for the Fifi.
Oh, yeah.
Puppet, and he came out and he had restored it. He'd found it at the back of a lockup and had restored it, and it was all working still. The eyes were blinking and all that stuff. So he gave us a rundown on making the Doctor Who puppets for that era and some of the work that he did, which was really cool. And then after episode 3, we had the Q&A panel with all those guys, and it was hilarious. And Sylvester McCoy was amazing as always, and Sophie, she's brilliant. They were all really good. They gave us some really good insight into kind of the political allegory stuff that was going on at the time, the Thatcher years, and how that story was meant to kind of sort of politically underpin what was happening in the country at the time, and then some insight into how things got going. Oh, sorry, Andrew Cartmel was there as well. Mustn't forget Andrew. Yes, and just a little plug, we actually interviewed Andrew on the podcast a few years ago, so go and hunt that episode down. That was a really good chat with him, but he gave you some cool insight as well into what John Nathan Turner was thinking around the time, and and how the BBC were thinking about the show and the ultimate sort of hiatus and all that. It was just amazing for those guys to bring up those memories and stuff. And we also had a really nice, so Graham Curry, who was the writer on the Happiness Patrol, is no longer with us, sadly. He passed away a few years ago, but his wife and his daughter was there, I believe, and she had wrote a lovely little sort of piece that was read out by one of the hosts, Justin, and so it was really nice. And they gave a really nice sort of tribute to him as well, because the crux of the Happiness Patrol is that at the time it was always viewed as a fairly sort of mediocre to sort of poor episode in McCoy's era and in that series. And over the years, it's kind of garnered it's kind of got more love, basically, over the years have gone on and that sort of thing. And yeah, so there was just a lot of love in the room, basically. Everyone was loving watching the story. There was one little hiccup, wasn't there, dude? It was
quite a big one, really.
Yeah. So the reason why we were there and why they do these screenings is so that we can see an episode from the upcoming Blu-ray set that's had a bit of the special edition treatment. So sort of the remastered look and any updated visual effects and all that stuff. And that's what we were expecting to see with the Happiness Patrol. But alas, a bit of a cock up at the BBC. They had sent the original video files to the BFI and not the remastered special edition ones. So it was kind of weird because they were about 2 or 3 minutes into the first episode and it just paused and the lights came up and we thought, hold on, what's going on here? And what's occurring here? And Justin came out and basically said, look, really sorry, don't know what's happened, but this is not the special edition version that you're watching. This is we've just been sent the original files. So a bit of a cock up. But having said that, it didn't put a downer at all on the event or everybody watching it. Everybody just was like, okay, cool. And then we just enjoyed watching the Happiness Patrol. And, there was no drama. There was nobody kicking off about it. There was nobody, saying anything detrimental. It was just a very cool cinema event to watch a very cool McCoy story. So that was really cool, dude. That was a highlight of the week for me, along with the proms. It was really cool. And then we stayed for a few hours afterwards, as we always do, and
have a few
drinks and meet up with people. And it was a great day. So yeah, I know we always say it's hard to get tickets for these things, but if you're in the UK and you can get to one, there'll be at least 2 next year. If you can get to them, then it's absolutely worth it. It was it was just amazing. And and thank you to a certain person for helping us get to that event. It was amazing. So, dude, really good one, that.
It was good. Yeah, I mean, there were, it is disappointing we didn't get to see the special edition, especially when we saw the trailer for the box set they played afterwards. And you got to see little clips of what we might have saw, because I'm very excited to see what they've done to it. I'm not normally a fan of new effects because I just think half the charm of Classic Who is the way it looks. But with Happiness Patrol, I think, it's a good story that is very much let down by the budget and the production values of the time. So I am intrigued to see what they've done with it. And the little clips we saw in the trailer, it does look kind of Blade Runner-ish, and it does look very intriguing. So there was a bit of disappointment there, but like you said, it did not ruin what was otherwise a fantastic day. Sheila Hancock, I didn't know she was going to be there. I don't think she was announced. She was like a surprise guest, and she was hilarious on stage. I mean, a lot of time the other people couldn't get a word in because she was just on a roll. She was so entertaining, as was Sylv and all the other guys. It was a really, really good event. But it also kind of messed up the podcast because we had planned to do, I think this week we were going to do a review of the Happiness Patrol Special Edition to give our thoughts on the new version. So obviously we can't do that. So we've resorted back to going to the Crusade, which is the one we were going to do anyway. So that's a bit of a shame because I was looking forward to being able to give the listeners a bit of an inside scoop of what might be coming up and reevaluating the Happiness Patrol as a story. But even just seeing the standard version, and by the way, I'm amazed they didn't check the files the night before. But anyway, even just seeing the standard version, it was still... we both said this is not a story that either of us particularly watched that much, even though we love the McCoy era. It was really good, wasn't it? Like the atmosphere, I don't know, there's something about seeing it in the cinema with other Doctor Who fans. And I said to you in particular, the soundtrack really brought home the dread of of the story, like the sort of horror element, because it is actually underneath all the sort of 80s bright lights and stuff. Well, it's not that bright, but you know what I mean, the bright costumes or whatever. There is actually a really dark story, and it's a good story. And the scene that always gets me is where the Doctor gets the gun and says, "Go on, shoot me, end my life." There's really powerful scenes in it, and we both said actually it's a cracking story. Really, so I'm so excited to see the special edition when it does come out on the box set. But it was a great day, it really was. And Justin and Dick, who host those events, I think they really help make the events even better. They are so funny on stage. They're great at interviewing the guests. They let them speak and they ask good questions, and they're just fun. So yeah, great event. Yeah,
it was. Yeah, and you're right. The atmosphere is very cool.
Yeah.
The before we move on, the main thing about, and if, like I said, if you ever get the opportunity to go and see the BFI, it's absolutely Doctor Who at the BFI. It's absolutely worth doing because there are certain things that, for me at least, it's always the comedy aspect of these classic stories that, and I don't mean comedy as in laughing at the poor quality sets or the poor effects or stuff like that. What I mean is the scripts are actually funnier, or appear to be funnier when you're in the cinema versus just at home watching them by yourself. So there are so many times throughout each episode where the cinema was just cracking up that you wouldn't necessarily laugh at if you're at home watching it by yourself. There just seems to be this air of just appreciation for all that stuff at a level that you don't appreciate when you're just at home. So it really does make the experience very cool when you're watching it with other Who fans. Similar to what we were saying about the proms, when you're around other Who fans and there's that energy and that love in the room, it makes it very cool. So
yeah, because me and you were cracking up at the Candyman when he was shouting at Gilbert, weren't we? We were like, I'm not happy. And everyone laughed when he picked up the phone, for example, which is that's never made me laugh before, and yet something about him going, "Hello, Candyman," on the phone where everyone cracked up. And it highlights things like that when you're watching it with other people. You get really into it, and I think that's the thing with having you actually do watch it properly, and you notice scenes like that. There's no distractions around you in the cinema because you're not on your phone, or at least you're not supposed to be. You know what I mean? So yeah, lovely little moments like that. And I did get emotional when they read out the letter from the writer's wife. That was a beautiful letter that she, really heartfelt words about, how he always believed it, it was such an unloved story, but thankfully, and I'm glad this happened, but thankfully over time, before he died, he met people at conventions and he got to know that the story had its fans and was actually loved by people, because his perception had always been that it was disliked. So I'm glad he got to know that before he died, but sad that he isn't here to see the reaction it got at BFI, because it went down really well, didn't it?
It did, mate. Yeah, very cool. And that was heartbreaking to hear as well, that he used to introduce himself, to other writers in the industry and stuff as I'm Graham Curry and I wrote an episode of Doctor Who that everybody hates. That was his go-to thought process, was that people just associated his name with this terrible story from Classic Who, from the McCoy era. And it's really, really not the case these days. I mean, it's unfortunate that sometimes it's one of those things where certain films or TV shows or specific episodes, they just need a bit of time to sort of percolate within, sort of, even over generations, it can take that time to get into a more, I don't know, appreciative mindset of fandom and so on. So, but it's just heartbreaking that that's what he thought. So fortunately, I think as the years went on and he attended more conventions, I think she said in a letter as well that he attended a convention and wasn't sure about it. He thought he was going to be there twiddling his thumbs. And then he came home and said that he hadn't had a moment to himself all day. He'd just been busy with people asking for photos, autographs, saying how much they loved the story. So it kind of came around in the end, for his later years. But yeah, that was emotional for sure.
Yeah, it was. And every story and every Doctor, no matter how perceived as unpopular it is, or they are, every Doctor Who story has its fans, you know. Somebody will always gravitate towards something that it may be the sort of majority don't. And like you said, time seems to have an effect on this. You know, over time we sort of grow an appreciation for things that perhaps we didn't back in the day. Somebody maybe ought to talk to Peter Kay, because I believe that if ever Doctor Who fans meet Peter Kay, he often says, "Oh yes, I'm in the most hated Doctor Who story, Love and Monsters," and it's like, well, no, some people love that story, but I think Peter Kay regards it as one that's hated. I've heard him that he says that. I remember speaking to the two, the two twins from the Twin Dilemma. They did their first LFCC, and I met them, and obviously they're, you know, fully grown men now, and two of the nicest guys you could possibly meet. And, the conversation very much that I had with them at the signing table very much centred around the fact that they, you know, were aware they were in a story that was, you know, in brackets hated. And I remember saying the same to them. Well, you know, you say that, but there are people out there who will love it. I said, you know, everything has its fans, you know, whether it's, whether it's the Twin Dilemma or whether it's, you know, the 11th Hour, which is very popular. Everything has its fans.
It does, yeah. So, yes, in a nutshell, two very, very good events last week, mate.
Great couple of weekends, man. Yeah. I'll tell you, I've been on such a high.
So I think the next thing, I don't think there's anything else other than, I think there's a Riverside event going on.
Yeah, me and Maria should be, she's lured me. She's dangled as she got a spare ticket to the Riverside Dragonfire event this coming weekend. And I was like, oh, I can't afford it, Maria. You know, I've got no money. I've been to London. And she's like dangled it in front of me like a carrot. And I'm like, oh, go on then. I need one more. I need another hit. Like, you know, so, yeah, I'm going to go to that with Maria. So they're showing Dragonfire, and they've got some really good guests. McCoy's there again, I believe. Yeah, I'm pretty sure McCoy's there. And I don't know, is Ace there? I forget now. I remember when they announced the guesses for it, I was thinking, yeah, it's really cool. I think Edward Peel's there. I can't remember the woman's name. It's just completely gone on my head. The one who's completely bonkers in real life, but I just can't wait to meet her. She did a special feature on the box set, and she just comes across as larger than life character. What is her name?
Who are you talking about, dude?
From Dragonfire. It'll come to me. I'm just going to quickly Google it. How annoying. Anyway, yeah, she's there, and I've never met her before. And
is it Patricia Quinn?
That's the one. That's so bad with names. Wait till we get to the Crusade listeners. I haven't got a clue who anyone is in that. Yeah, Patricia Quinn's there, and I've never met her. And her little featurette on the Blu-ray set for season 24, she just comes across as such a character that I can't wait to see her being interviewed, and I'll probably get her auto afterwards because I just want to meet her. So yeah, it's going to be a good event. Looking forward to that. And Maria will probably do a report on it, I'm sure. She's our roving reporter, so while I'm at the bar getting suitably leathered, she'll be writing she'll be doing the hard work, and she'll give you a rundown on it, I'm sure, on the Blue Box website. Yeah.
Yep. Alrighty. So that was the event, and we are going to crash into our review for the week. As always, before we get to that, though, just a friendly nudge to make sure that you are following or subscribing to the podcast in whatever app you listen to your podcasts on. That way you won't miss an episode when they go out every Friday. You can do that by just doing a search for the Big Blue Box, or if you head over to the website, which is bigblueboxpodcast.co.uk, there are links there that go off to the various networks. And you can also listen online, actually, if you're on a computer or whatever. All the episodes are there. You can also read the very cool reviews and articles and editorials and all that lot from our writing team. We had a couple of Big Finish reviews that went out in the last week from Jordan. And I think Maria's actually got a post that's ready to go out. I think she's reviewed a Big Finish story, or she's got an event. I think an event, one of the two. There's one from Maria that's going to land this week as well. So check out all of this cool stuff from the writing team. We're on the socials too, and you can link to those and chat with us. We chat Doctor Who throughout the week on those things, so get involved over there. And we have a very cool free Discord server. There's a link on the website, so hop in there and chat plenty of Doctor Who with other cool, like-minded Doctor Who fans. And it would be silly of me to remind you to not forget to remember, there's one for you, to go and check out my co-host channel over on YouTube. It's called The Geek's Handbag.
The Geek's Handbag. And yeah, I'm actually currently working on a vlog of the proms. Because as Gary will tell you, because he was watching me while I was in it, we weren't sat together, sadly, but he could see me. I did a bit of filming in there. I'm just trying to decide how much I can actually include, like whether I can include any music at all, even a snippet, or because I don't know, YouTube are pretty hot on that. It might get taken down straight away. So I'm trying to work out what I can include and what I can't include in terms of the music that was played and stuff. But yeah, I'm working on a vlog of the proms, which I'm hoping to get out, but pretty quick. But I just keep taking bits out, thinking, don't know if I can include that, and because I don't want to get copyright striked. But yeah, that's on the way soon, and I'm pretty pleased with how it's coming along. So yeah.
Nice. That sounds good, dude.
Yeah.
So go and check out Adam's channel. Loads of cool geekery stuff there. Loads of Doctor Who stuff. And he's on the socials too under the same name, The Geek's Handbag.
Indeed.
So go and say hello. Alrighty. Review time, dude. What we got?
Yeah, so we're drifting back to season 2 with the first Doctor this week for the Crusade.
I fear this wood, sire. You are too far from Jaffa and the Saracens too near.
I'm a traveller. I came with 3 friends. We arrived in the wood.
You have no rights. Nothing except the benevolence of our leader.
There were 4 of us in that wood.
This woman can rot in one of Saladin's prisons until her hair turns white, before I'll trade with the man that killed my friends.
You defy the world with your politics.
You must serve my purpose, or you have no purpose.
Right, an interesting one, this dude. So, as any long-time listeners will know, we call them the Grizzled Ancients. You guys will know that we have gone through pretty much all of Doctor Who for our reviews. We've now got to the point where, because we were hoping, we said this very, very early on, years ago, in fact. Adam might remember, he would have been sloshed at the bar probably, but we said that we were going to try and put off doing the ones that had missing episodes or missing episodes, because hopefully over the years they'll either be animated or they'll be found or whatever. So that has happened with a few of them, which is cool, but with a few of them, unfortunately, they are still missing. And one of the examples is the Crusade, and that has got 2 episodes still missing, but 2 episodes survive or have been found and whatnot. So I think there's a couple of different ways to watch this. I dug out the season 2 box set, and I watched the ones with they call it the telly snaps, I guess, the reconstructed, where it's just a bunch of still images with because the audio tracks have survived for all 4 episodes, so they've just put still images and you just hear the audio as they go through. It's a bit like a PowerPoint presentation, but with the original track over the top. On this set, though, I think there's also another way to watch it, where you've got like these intermission bits with, is it Gary Russell or somebody else? I can't remember. There's another way of watching it, but anyway, I watched the version that's got the reconstructed telesnap versions for episodes 2 and 4. Yes. So that's how we watched it, just for reference, for our review. And the details for this story are thus. It was first broadcast back on the 27th of March in 1965. It's a 4-parter. It finished up on the 17th of April of the same year. It was written by David Whittaker, overseen by then script editor Dennis Spooner, and was directed by Douglas Camfield. It stars William Hartnell as the First Doctor, and then William Russell, Jacqueline Hill, and Maureen O'Brien as the companions, Ian, Barbara and Vicky, and quite a sizable supporting cast that Adam and I will absolutely just never remember all the names and stuff, apart from like the big ones like Alkia and Saladin and King Richard and stuff like that. Yeah, and the Doctor, obviously. And the synopsis is short and sweet. The TARDIS arrives in 12th century Palestine, where a holy war is in progress between the forces of King Richard the Lionheart and the Saracen ruler Saladin. Barbara is abducted in a Saracen ambush, and the Doctor, Ian and Vicky make their way to King Richard's palace in the city of Jaffa. So, dude, a bit of a historical setting for this one, back in the Holy Wars in the 12th century, etc. And the TARDIS team sort of land in the thick of it, and ultimately ends up in a rescue mission as Barbara's kidnapped, and they need to go and rescue her. while this is all going on. So what are your thoughts, dude, on this one?
Poor old Barbara. She always gets a rough ride, doesn't she? Particularly in this one.
Yeah.
Been thrown around. Historicals, mate, they're not, apart from maybe the Aztecs, they're not ones I lean towards that much. They can be a bit dull, I often find, some of the historicals. So some of them are great. Some people love them, but they're not ones I gravitate towards. I don't think I've watched this since it came out on DVD, whenever the heck that would have been, because it was almost like watching it for the first time last night. I was thinking, have I ever watched this? Because I didn't remember a lot of it, and I found myself quite charmed by it, to be honest with you. It is a shame that the episodes 2 and 4 are missing, because it does break up the flow of what is actually quite despite being historical, it's quite a fun script. There's some really good lines in it, some really fun moments, and the cast are pretty much all the cast really, really on top form. They really bring this story to life. So I went into it expecting it to be honest with you, a dull historical story with 2 episodes missing that I was going to have to really slog through. I ended up finding it quite enjoyable, and actually really sad that those 2 episodes don't exist, because I think this would have been a really, really, well, I think it is a good story, and I think if those 2 missing episodes were there, I think it would be regarded as a bit of a classic, because it's it's slightly off kilter, it's slightly different to other stories, and that's what I like about it. It's production-wise really good, the costumes and sets look great, but it's more the performances and the direction, and it's fairly pacey. I mean, again, it's very wordy, but the scenes seem to move quite quickly. I think it's edited quite well for a 60s episode. So I was quite charmed by it, mate. I was just sad that the 2 episodes are missing, because it does ruin, to an extent, the viewing experience. You know, you watch episode 1 and you're straight into the action. That's what struck me. I almost felt like if I put episode 3 on by mistake, because it goes straight into it. The TARDIS lands and there's a sword fight. Barbara gets captured like almost straight away. We're straight into the story. I just found myself getting quite into it. And then obviously you go to episode 2 and it's telly snaps and the audio recordings, and it is a little bit, I don't know, it's hard to keep your concentration, I found. I don't know. I think I prefer animations, to be honest with you. But even those I can find a bit hard to get through. But yeah, then you're back into the action for episode 3. But then sadly, part 4, which is the one you want to see because it's the conclusion, we're back to telesnaps. So it makes it slightly hard for me to judge this properly in the sense that of how good a story it is. But I think it's a good script, and I can tell from the 2 surviving episodes that the cast were fantastic in it. So yeah, I quite enjoyed this one, mate. I was very, very pleasantly surprised. How I would describe it, I don't think it's an out-and-out classic, but I would describe it as a charming historical, just a really nice little 4-parter. You know, I think if it had been 6, that would have dragged on too much. But as a little 4-parter, I thought it was quite good. Yeah, what do you reckon to it? What do you think?
Yeah, much along the same lines as what you've you've said. Really, it's the script is sharp as a knife.
Sharp, yeah, that's the word I was looking for.
Yeah, for back in the day, and I think that was one of the things when doing some research on this story. That was one of the things that kind of got the band sort of up for the story, if you like, because although it's a historical setting and it's based on the Crusade. I think it's the 3rd Crusade. Sort of back, a long time ago. It's they took some creative license with moving some events around to make them a lot closer together. So things like so there were 2 main things that they focused on. The first one was King Richard's his kind of plan to bring peace and end the war was to offer his sister up as marriage to Saladin's brother. And then the other one was the ambush of King Richard near Jaffa, which is the opening scenes and so on. So they say those are the two main things. If you're a history buff or that sort of thing, it's those two things. But they were kind of moved a little bit and closer together, and then the rest of the script that happens around it is very. I think a lot of people have sort of said it's like almost a Shakespearean script. So all of the supporting cast, they're like very, very. The performances were really, really good from the supporting cast. They were. In a way, it was like watching a stage, a theatre play. It played out. The script is so sharp, though. It's even because sometimes with classic Who stories, you get this sense that because of the restrictions with maybe sets or just the way the story's been designed, especially if it's like a real kind of out there science fiction, ethereal, crazy story. Sometimes you get the feeling that some of the supporting cast actors are not really into it 100%, whereas all of these guys, they are fully, they all got the memo on this one. It was like, right, this is going to be a cool classic kind of story. And I think sometimes, that's the appeal for some actors who want to do a more kind of a straighter story. I mean straight as in like without all the science fiction mumbo jumbo language, if that makes sense. Some actors just want to be more Shakespearean and more, classic, I guess. So I think for a lot of the supporting actors, that was the appeal for this one. Although it's a science fiction show, it didn't really feel like a sci-fi show, this one, because of its historical setting. And that was the genius dude back then from Verity Lambert, right? So she had said back then, look, we need to balance the show a little bit. We've got lots of sci-fi going on. We need to balance it and have something that's a bit more sort of earthly, historical. So that was the genius of Verity Lambert, to sort of have the foresight to see, right, okay, this is what we need to do in terms of stories moving forward. So anyway, so the story is very cool. And the script is really good, and it's just it's got a cool it's almost got a modern story feel to it. It's because Barbara gets ambushed and kidnapped, and then they need to try and figure out a way to get her back. But at the same time, she doesn't have that sort of damsel in distress, shrinking violet feel about her. She tries to escape. She doesn't just play the sort of prisoner, the female prisoner role. She really gets into it and stuff. So it's got that really cool.
That's Barbara for you. That's why I love Barbara. She's not one to sit around feeling sorry for herself. She'll get straight into the thick of the action. I just wanted to say as well, mate, because all the stuff you're saying there, I think this is why I was surprised how much I enjoyed this last night, is because on paper, to be fair, that synopsis doesn't sound that exciting to me, and it is very Shakespearean, so you expect all the performances to be very hammy and over the top. Neither of those things are true. It's actually, like you said, it's a very good script. It is a good story. It is Shakespearean, but the performances are toned to the level that is perfect. It's just, like you said, it is a bit like watching a play, but it's not so theatrical that it feels over the top or, very hammy performance. The performances are brilliant in it. So I think, again, sort of on paper, this doesn't sound like a particularly exciting Doctor Who story to me, but it does have something about it that draws you in, and I think a lot of that is down to the performance and, like you said, a very, very tight and fun script. Yeah, and you're absolutely right, dude. If you were just reading this on paper, the synopsis at least, you would initially think, it doesn't sound too appealing. But there's actually some really cool stuff in it. So there's a couple of really good fight scenes. There's a really good one with Ian. There's the opening scenes, as you mentioned, and stuff. It's just a shame that the two episodes that are missing, that we watched as reconstructions, they, unfortunately, I think those two are the most visual episodes in the story. They were like the most sort of happens, I guess, that you would enjoy visually. So that's a shame that those two are missing, especially episode 4. But yeah, as a story, it doesn't sound
too crazy when you read it on paper. But yeah, it's really, really good.
And also the fight
just
scenes,
because the pacing,
the pacing as well. But the fight scenes as well. Normally in 60s Who, if you have a fight scene, it's very, very sort of stilted, isn't it? It's like you can just see that they've rehearsed it, and it's so unrealistic and rubbish. Normally, in 60s, in TV in general back then, just fight scenes weren't particularly good. I think maybe this could be down to the direction or whatever, but the sword fight scenes are actually very good for this sort of era. And they're actually quite violent. There's a bit where someone gets a sword right through the heart, and I thought, blimey, they didn't like shy away from that. That was, pretty gruesome. But yeah, do you know what I mean? Normally fight scenes in classic Who in the sort of 60s weren't normally that good. It's always like the actors sort of making a lot of puffing and, groaning noises, but it's so rubbish normally, isn't it, when they're having a fight? And I always love it when Ian gets stuck into a good old ruckus. But do you know what I mean? The fight scenes are actually pretty good for this era, I thought, which also helps with the story.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, they're actually they're pretty good. Even like the little scuffles, like even the not necessarily the full blown sword fights or anything like that, but it's even just the little scuffles. When Barbara gets helped by a couple of people when she's on the run after she's escaped, and there's somebody that helps her in the street, and those little scenes where the guards go past and then he creeps up behind them and he silently takes one of them down, and and then he go and smashes the other one, and even those little bits like that are only sort of 10 seconds on screen, they're done very well. So from a physical point of view and visually, those two episodes that we have got, everything's done very well. The direction, who was the director? What was he? Dougie.
Dougie Camfield, which he's a great director. I did think it might be him. When I watched the first episode, I thought it does have a feel about it that's very tight and well and directed, and I instantly got that feel that it was Dougie Camfield, because I think he was one of the best Doctor Who directors. I don't know, he's got a certain style that seems to sort of jump out at me when he's directing. So yeah, obviously it's an early one for him, but yeah, still really good direction by Dougie on this one.
Yeah, very cool. So in terms of direction, I think we both agreed it's a cracking one for direction, and Douglas Camfield did a brilliant job. So I think it was a little bit of a cool tag team, because I think somebody left straight after this, right? Was it David Whittaker? It was either David Whittaker or somebody. This was their last story before they left, and David Whittaker. So he wrote it just after leaving the show as the show editor. So there was a little bit of a change up, sort of behind the scenes. But you almost get this. So Douglas Camfield and David Whittaker, they almost had this really cool tag team. Sometimes when we talk about classic Who, especially with some actors who played the Doctor that are a little bit vocal about things, like Tom Baker and William Hartnell. Sometimes if there's a director that's been assigned to a story that they didn't get on with, there's often this bit of tension on set, and there's a bit of friction there. Whereas it's noted that William Hartnell really liked Douglas Camfield. Yeah, so he was really cool. So after Hartnell had read the script and then went through, I think with Dennis Spooner, and then had said, we're going to get Douglas on and stuff. I think it's noted that that William Hartnell was thrilled by that. The only thing that William Hartnell wasn't too impressed with was the initial story. So when David Whittaker was going through the script in the early phases, because he was fascinated by this whole historical era and more so the characters, so King Richard and stuff. One of the things that he was interested in was the relationship between King Richard and his sister. But in the original script, there was a little bit of sexiness going on between them, because he felt like it had been historically noted that there was almost a kind of incestuous sort of thing going on between those two. So he put a few scenes in there where it kind of went in that direction. It obviously wasn't, too full on or anything, but it went in that direction. And apparently William Hartnell was like, absolutely not. Like, that's not happening. We're not having that anything to do with that stuff, because this is, yeah. So his train of thought was, it's primarily a family show, so it has no place, in the show. So there was somebody who was a bit gutted that they removed, because apparently the dialogue and the scenes that were written for those two characters, and having moving in that direction, a little bit of that stuff, apparently they were written really well, and people were like, oh, this is amazing. So there was one person, I think it might have been either Douglas Camfield or Dennis Spooner, that was quite unhappy that Hartnell insisted they were taken out, because apparently they elevated those characters a bit more and created a bit more of a connection as to why. Because there's a scene where the Doctor lets slip to King Richard's sister that King Richard was going to offer her up as marriage. She didn't know about it, and she kicks off, doesn't she? She absolutely goes mad at him. Yeah, so apparently having those scenes in would have made that scene even more understandable from her point of view. So anyway, that was the only thing that William Hartnell wasn't sort of too keen on. And actually, talking of that scene, it's hilarious, because all that's kicking off. She's going absolutely mad. She walks out, and then he goes straight up to the Doctor, who's been out of shot at this point, so out of frame. The Doctor and Vicky are standing there, and he knows immediately that it's the Doctor that's told her, because he didn't want to tell his sister the plan until the last minute. But obviously he's found out, and the Doctor just standing there, not even making eye contact with him. Like, he's like, we've been found out. But he doesn't say anything. The Doctor's just like got that face on him, like William Hartnell always has his moments of just brilliance, where not necessarily wanting to be funny, but comes across as funny, where he's got that facial expression. It's like, God, she kicked off, didn't she? God, what's all that about? And he knows full well, what was. Yeah. So anyway, script and stuff, story. All very cool on this one. Production-wise, dude, as we've noted, a bit unfortunate we haven't got 2 episodes, but the 2 episodes that we have got are really cool. Just quickly, what did you think about the reconstructed ones, the telesnaps? Because they can be a bit of a chore sometimes. And these ones were a little bit, but they didn't bother me as much as... I can't remember the last story that I watched that had them, and I remember thinking, wow, these were a real slog, but these ones weren't too bad. I don't know about you.
No, they weren't too bad, actually, to be fair. I mean, this is the thing, when season 2 came out on the collection box set, I think we were all a bit surprised, because, it's the first set not to... Well, we assumed they would animate this story, the missing 2 episodes first, and then release it. So it did feel like it sort of come out a bit prematurely in that sense, but they're okay. To be fair, I mean, I didn't find them that hard to get through, to be honest with you. In fact, I didn't find them hard to get through at all. It just does kind of break the momentum of the story a bit when you go from episode 1 into sort of like these screenshots. But no, they're okay. I wouldn't say they're perfect, but they do the job. But I think I would have preferred it if they'd have been animated, to be honest. But yeah, they're okay. They're certainly watchable, and obviously you've got the dialogue and stuff, and they've done their best to mix in as much live footage as they can. Excuse me. So they start with sort of like the beginning, and episode 4 has the ending tacked on from whatever the next story was. So they use they use the sort of bit of the end from the Space Museum to be the end of this. So they've done their best to sort of make it as complete as they can, I guess. But no, they weren't too bad. Like you said, it's certainly not the Underwater Menace standard of telesnaps, which are almost impossible to get through. Yeah, they do the job, mate. I didn't find it that hard. I found it more jarring, if you know what I mean. But I didn't find it that hard to actually get through them once I got into them.
Yeah, same. Yeah, that initial sort of 5 minutes in, it was a bit like, okay, cool. This is going to be like all the others. But yeah, 10 minutes in, it's like, okay, I'm kind of, just chilling. You know what I mean? It's sometimes it's like,
it's a bit like listening to an audiobook, really. You stop sort of watching them, I find. You just end up sort of listening to it.
Yes, exactly that. Yeah. It's a good way of putting it, dude, actually. Yeah. It's kind of like, and exactly that, an audiobook, where you've just got a little bit of a helping hand with what's happening on screen, just to set a bit of context, I guess. But yeah, they weren't too bad. Okay, so story-wise, it's very like that historical nature is very cool. Production-wise, is pretty sweet, and in terms of we can't really talk too much about that stuff because it's not the complete package, I guess. But from what we've seen, sort of direction-wise, it looks very good. The fight scenes, especially, and whatnot. In terms of some characters, dude, because it's for me, it's the characters that make the story. Because the performances for most of them were very cool. There is going to be a load of them that we can't either remember or we can't, can't place the character names. But in terms of like that, to me, there were two groups of supporting cast actors. There was not the main cast like William Hartnell, etc., but the main supporting cast actors were characters like El-Kir, Saladin's brother, Safadine, King Richard, and a guy called Chamberlain who was and King Richard's sister, and then you've got the lower cast supporting members. That's people like the guards, the Saladin guards, and that sort of thing. There was one guy that I wanted to just ask your opinion on before we go up the tree, if you like, of those things. There was one guy that was that finds Ian. Ian gets knocked out when he's in the middle of a fight, and then he wakes up and he's been tied up in the middle of the desert. And there's a guy that finds him and becomes his like little sidekick for the last part of the story, if that makes sense. And I'm trying to find the guy's name, but he was like a very cool. He was almost like a Disney character, wasn't he? He was in a way, he was this strange little dude. What do you think to him? I'm trying to find his Ibrahim.
Yeah, no, I do know exactly. Yeah. I do know exactly what you mean. What's his name?
Ibrahim was the character name, and he was played by Toot Lemko. He was a funny little character, though. He brought like a kind of strange, not comic relief, but like a kind of cool weirdness to the story at that point.
I liked him. I think he's only in it. He's only in that bit because if I'm remembering correctly, because I was watching this with the production text, so to get a bit better idea of what was going on in it. And I think he was quite a late addition, wasn't he? Wasn't he brought in because the actor who was supposed to be in those scenes couldn't be there or something? I don't know. I think he was brought in sort of last minute as a replacement for one of the other supporting cast that couldn't film those scenes, because I think William Russell filmed those separately because he was going on holiday during the making of this production or something like that. It's all a bit timey-wimey. So those scenes were filmed kind of separately. And I think that's how he ended up being in it. But yeah, it's nice. It's a like you said, it breaks it up a little bit because suddenly Ian's tied up on this beach. And he has ants put on him, doesn't he? Don't they?
Yeah, he pours honey over him, and so the ants get attracted.
Honey over him, I mean, to attract the ants. So it does. It sort of breaks up the momentum a bit, having this guy come in and give, like you said, a bit of comic relief. And I liked him. I mean, there were certain, although I can't remember. We were going through this huge cast list, and we were saying like, God, I'm never going to remember all their names and stuff. There were a couple of characters that sort of stood out to me, and I think overall, just to sort of put a blanket thing over the supporting cast, I think this is the thing that particularly stood out to me about this story, was the supporting cast were all great. Like you said, it's like everyone seemed to be on the ball. Everyone seemed to be, into their characters, big or small, whether they were a lead or a background character or had a few lines, like this guy and stuff. So everybody seemed to be doing their bit. But there were sort of two characters that sort of stood out to me that I've just particularly warmed towards, and he was one of them. and the other one was the guy. And again, it's more comic relief. This is the thing. I wasn't expecting to be smiling so much through this historical. There were so many nice moments in it. And the other character was the guy who's stolen the clothes that the Doctor steals his clothes. That funny little, you stole my clothes. And he comes back into it at the end. And I was so pleased to see him back. And the Doctor's like, how could I have stole your clothes when you stole them from him? And all this sort of stuff. But he was a wonderful character as well. And again, I don't know what the character was called, but you know the one I mean. He's in the start when the Doctor steals the clothes from behind him. And he comes back at the end to sort of tell the Doctor off for stealing the clothes that he's stolen in the first place. So he was a lovely character as well, whatever he was called. Yeah.
He was very cool, actually. Yeah, he was they bring him back, don't they? And he's designing the outfits for Vicky and so on, which is cool. So those characters, they were like the little, like I said, it's weird to say it this way, but they're almost like Disney characters in that, in every Disney film, there's always those quirky, funny, sort of side characters. They were like that in a way. A small performance from Robert Lancashire as the Chamberlain. He was the guy that sort of backs up the Doctor in a couple of arguments that he's having with King Richard and stuff. He was quite cool. What did you think too, Jean Marsh then as Joanna, King Richard's sister? So obviously a big time TV actress, and she was great, man. There was a couple of scenes where you just thought, like I mentioned earlier, with some stories, some actors in the guest cast, they just get it, they get their character and so on. And she absolutely, that one scene where she blows up at her brother because she finds out his plan, she was amazing in that scene. She just stole it. Like all eyes are on her, and stuff. But she's a massive career and whatnot. And she's still with us, mate. She's 90. Jean Marsh, she's still going, which is amazing. So and obviously, previous wife to a certain Doctor. She was married to John Pertwee, wasn't she, back in the 50s or the 60s, something like that. And anyway, she was great in this, dude. I thought she was really good.
She is good. I always think of her as is it Morag or what's the character in Battlefield that she plays?
Something
as
like
well.
That.
Something like that. But she is a wonderful actress because she's got such a distinctive features on her face, and she just, I don't know, not only does she give a fantastic performance, she's a great actor, but she's got a look about her that she's just, you can't take your eyes off her when she's on screen. She's just one of those actors, isn't she?
Yes.
So a great performance of her, brilliant in it. Just great.
Just really cool. Yeah, she was very cool. And then we had King Richard the Lionheart, as he's known, played by Julian Glover. Another big time actor. Another big time actor, has been in other Doctor Who. Had a small part. For me, I always associate him with The Empire Strikes Back for some reason. General Veers, of course. Yep. But his performance in this was again a bit like Jean Marsh. Just the two of them are a great tag team, and his performances were really cool as well. So far, no complaints from the supporting cast members. They were very cool.
Well, yeah, I was going to say I love Julian Glover anyway. I mean, obviously, I probably associate him more with City of Death, of course, but he is great in this, and it's nice to see him playing this sort of rather theatrical, or giving this rather theatrical performance, I should say, as Richard the Lionheart. He's such a nice man as well. I met him at LFCC a few years back, and I really like him as an actor. Something about his style of performance, and I think he's great at playing, different roles. Like you said, he is in Star Wars. You're quite right. A very small part, but we do remember him from it, don't we? That's the thing. He's another wonderful actor, and again, he's got a very good face on him. You know what I mean? Again, you do find yourself captivated by him when he's on screen. I think he works well with Hartnell's Doctor as well in this, and I might be wrong saying this because there's nothing on Wiki about it, but I'm sure I've heard over the years that they didn't particularly get on. I don't know if he's talked about it at a convention, and I might be wrong, so I'm saying this allegedly. Maybe listeners out there can fill us in on this. I'm sure they didn't quite click.
Okay.
But I might be confusing him with something else, because let's face it, Hartnell didn't click with everybody. So yes, I think they work well on screen together, certainly. And maybe they did get on. I may have got that wrong. That maybe, whispers over the years, but they certainly work well on screen together anyway. They
do, don't they? Yeah. Okay, and then on the other side of the Holy War, then we've got the Saracen dudes. So we've got two brothers, right? So we've got, and there was another guy in there as well, wasn't there? He turned up later on, the Sultan, I think. I can't remember his name. He was in one of the reconstructed episodes. I can't really judge too much. But in terms of those guys, we had Bernard Kay as Saladin. So he was really good, but he started off really well, but then kind of got overshadowed a little bit by his brother, Saffadine, played by Roger Axon. But both of those were cool. The guy with the scar, yeah. Both of them have got that, as the story was written to be like, King Richard and these guys were not that this is the case, but it was kind of written as you'd expected, that King Richard and those guys were the goodies, the Saracens were the baddies, kind of thing. So they kind of played up to that a little bit, where they had this kind of ruthless, more sort of cutthroat attitude to things, and that was very evident in Saffadine's character, the guy with the scar. But both of those were really cool, and you kind of wanted to. Immediately anyway, in episode 1, you kind of wanted to side with King Richard and those guys, because we only see them being ambushed and attacked, and then we only see Barbara being kidnapped and so on. So we associate immediately as those being the goodies and the Saracens being the baddies. And then these characters kind of play into that nicely as the story goes on as well. Certainly Roger Avon, the guy with the scar, he had that real kind of nasty, guy character you like to hate and see their comeuppance, because of the way he treated Barbara and so on. So both of those guys, they're really cool.
Yes, yeah, very good. I guess I knew he was a bad. As soon as you see a scar across anyone's eye, they instantly must be a baddie.
It's almost like having a British accent for a baddie, isn't it? Back in the day.
Yeah. No, they were both very good. They were. I know what you mean about slightly overshadowing each other in terms of the story, but by the end of it, they both kind of play out quite well. Yeah.
Yeah, indeedy. And then, there was another guy that was in it. He was really cool. He was the guy that played King Richard's. He was an imposter, basically. So if any time the party was captured or whatever, the enemy was under the impression that they had captured the king, but in reality he was, cool back at the castle or whatever. So there was a guy that was sort of looked after Barbara a little bit after they were first captured. Do you know who I mean? It was the guy that was was it El Alakir, I think was the guy. Yeah. Listener, you'll probably be screaming at the podcast if we're wrong, but I'm pretty sure. More, yeah. So I think that was the guy at the beginning. But he was. It's weird, isn't it, that in some stories they gravitate very much towards. Oh no, sorry, hold on. Alakir was one of the guards, Saracen guards, who brings Barbara to Saladin and Saffadin. And then they find out that it's a ruse and she's not the king's sister and so on. So he's made to look like a bit of a fool. So Alakir is the guard that sort of wants to get his revenge on Barbara because she showed him up a little bit. Yes, sorry. It isn't Alakir. Listener, you calm down. You're good. We've got this. The guy that is with Barbara, whoever his character name is, was very cool as well. let's go with that, shall we? And then let's talk about the TARDIS team. So what do you think to the companions, dude? So Barbara was really cool. I'm really happy that they wrote her in a way that she wasn't just the damsel in distress to be rescued. She did hold her own and so on. And Ian was really cool, as always in these type of stories. He gets his hands dirty and so on. The only character that wasn't too great from the TARDIS team was Vicky. It was one of those stories where it was one companion too many. There wasn't enough for her to do. She had a couple of nice little scenes with the Doctor, and there was a funny little scene where she pretends to be a boy. The Doctor's like, in this time period, you won't be as in immediate danger if you're a boy versus being a girl. So they try to do that, and it comes out in a scene and stuff. So she has a couple of nice scenes, but not too much to do. And then Ian and Barbara are great. So yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, William Russell, just great as ever, getting stuck in, love it. Barbara, brilliant as ever. Jacqueline Hill, not taking any nonsense. You're right, just absolutely great performances from them, as you'd expect. Absolutely agree about Vicky. Nothing to do with Maureen O'Brien. It's just that, sadly, I think, like you said, she's one companion too many. She doesn't really get anything to do. She kind of gets lost in the story, which is a shame because there is a couple of nice moments. There's a bit where the Doctor comforts her towards the end. There's a lovely scene where he sort of gives her a big hug, and I do like the relationship between the Doctor and Vicky. He's very protective of her, like the grandfather figure, and I love that. But sadly, she just gets lost really in a story that, let's face it, has a lot of characters anyway. So there's nothing for her really to do.
True, there isn't, is there? Yeah, and William Hartnell then. In this one, didn't go away on holiday, so he's in every episode, surprisingly. So he's with us the whole time. Weirdly, dude, and this might just be me, but I felt like he wasn't in it a lot. Even though he's in it, there seemed to be a lot of stuff happening with Barbara and the Saracens and King Richard and stuff and all these characters. It felt like he was in it, but he wasn't really driving the story. If that makes sense. He was just kind of turning up in various scenes, chatting to people, doing all that stuff. Just didn't really drive anything. So William Hartnell was fantastic as the Doctor in the scenes where we see him. But I just felt like he wasn't sort of the driving force behind any of the plans in the story. It was just he was observing and commenting rather than driving that stuff. But still great. Just it might just be me, but I just felt like he wasn't sort of there as like the main focal point of the story, if that makes sense.
Well, now you say it, I think you're kind of right, actually, because I was going to say I think Hartnell's absolutely on top of his game in this. I think he's brilliant in it. He's got a lot of energy in this story, and he's funny and he's serious when he needs to be. And I love all the scenes of him nicking the clothes and the interactions with Richard the Lionheart. I think he's fantastic in this story. I don't even think he fluffs, as far as I can remember. But now you mention it, he's not the one solving the, I say the mysteries, there's not that much mystery, but you know what I mean? You're right. He's not the driving force of righting the wrongs and getting things solved. He is slightly in the background of this story. You are right. I guess that hadn't really occurred to me because I think the scenes he's in, I think he's so strong. I think he's so good in it. But I guess he is a little bit of a background character for the most part. Mm-hmm. So you're kind of right there, mate. But I think he's just so good in it that I hadn't really noticed, to be honest with you. Because he does sort of pop up just when you sort of forget he's in it. He pops up and has a scene. So yeah, but yeah, you're right. I think you've summed that up perfectly. That he's not the driving force of this story. He's not there telling people, like he's not there telling Ian what he should be doing. Go and get Barbara, blah blah blah. He's kind of just there, just chatting to people, which makes him sound incredibly dull. But it's I just think he's so good in this story. But yeah, you're right. He's not in it as much as you'd think.
Indeed, yeah. Not to say, like you said, not to say he isn't good. He's great, in this story. as he is in most stories. He's great. It's just, for some reason I thought it was me. I thought, have I got this wrong? Is my recollection of the story incorrect?
No, I only watched it last night, and I'm now thinking, I think you're right. I guess he wasn't in it all that much, or he doesn't get that much to do, I suppose is maybe a better way of putting it. He's in good scenes, but he doesn't get that much to do as the Doctor, I suppose,
Yeah, okay. And just lastly, very quickly again, Dudley Simpson. We seem to mention his name a lot recently, but Dudley's back and has done the score for this one. A bit kind of on the light side of the music, I would say. There's not a lot of music in every episode, but when it does appear, it kind of suits the story, I guess. It's got that. I think he's tried to write the story to fit the time period, which works perfectly in some places. But I don't really remember it. I don't think it's too memorable, but it does fit the story.
Yeah, it doesn't strike me as classic Dudley. Like I wasn't sat there thinking, oh, this is Dudley, because he's normally so recognisable, isn't he, Dudley's music? And of course, this is just after this story that Douglas Camfield and Dougie Simpson fell out, and which of course led on to Camfield never using him again on any story he worked on. So any Doctor Who story that Douglas Camfield works on after this, Dudley Simpson doesn't do the music because it was a misunderstanding, I believe. I mean, this is quite well known, so this is this is out there in the ether that I think the story goes that Douglas Camfield went to a party that Dudley Simpson was hosting or was at, started talking about money, got into a bit of an argument about it, and fell out. And it was a bit of a sort of misunderstanding. He seemed to think Dudley Simpson was making lots of money. Or something. So they fell out for years, and Douglas wouldn't work with him. Same with Blake Seven. Any Blake Seven episode that Douglas Camfield directs, he refuses to use Dudley Simpson, and they're the only episodes I think of Blake Seven which have a different composer for his episodes. So it's a real shame because you got one of the best, I think, directors there. You got Dudley Simpson, who I absolutely love his work, on Doctor Who and Blake Seven. Falling out and not working together over a misunderstanding. And I do believe that Douglas realised he'd made a mistake many, many years later, but it was too late. I think he died before they could reconcile their friendship. So a bit of a strange one, that, and a bit sad, really, because I have huge respect for both. And it's a shame they couldn't work it out, over time and work together, because their paths obviously crossed quite a lot during the 70s and probably 80s, I don't know, over Doctor Who and Blake Seven. So the fact that they, would go their separate ways at any time they had to be in the same room sort of thing is a shame, really.
Yes, isn't it? Yeah, you often hear these little stories about people falling out or things happening and you think, oh, come on.
Come on, yeah.
Come on.
Life's too short is the saying, and it's very true.
There you go, mate. Life's too short.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else on your notes, dude, before we put a score on this one?
I've put weird landing sound effect for TARDIS. I can't even remember that now. Did it have a weird? Oh. Yeah, must have. Maybe it sounded a bit weird.
Okay.
I've put great beards and moustaches. I'm just looking down my terrible notes because, I didn't make a lot for this story, to be honest with you. No, I think we've pretty much covered it, mate. I think we've pretty much covered it.
Cool. Okay, I think it's you to go first, bud.
Oh, I was hoping it's you because I'm kind of struggling with this. I'll tell you where I'm at. I'm at a 7.5 or maybe an 8. I think if the surviving episodes are there, I think I'd be going around an 8, but I think I'm going to give it a 7.5 just to be fair. What are you giving it?
I'm going to go with a 7. Straight on the nose 7. Yeah, just because, exactly as you've just said, if all 4 episodes were there, then it might be a 7.5 or an 8. But for me, it's a 7. It's just enjoyable, a really enjoyable story. Really, really good script. Some great performances, and I love the whole production design on it. All the costumes were great, and fight scenes were good. It's just a shame that we haven't got the complete package. But as a story and a script, it's really, really good. Yep.
I'll go with 7.5 then, mate. I'm normally just a bit ahead of you, and so I'll go with that.
Sweet. Alrighty, what did our awesome listeners think? Let's head over to the socials to see what you guys thought of the Crusade. Okay, over on the Twitter, we had a few people there. We had James Hadbin Bennett says, a 6 out of 10. Never have understood the appeal of this, but as I don't like Shakespeare, and that's what this is desperately trying to be, I guess it's inevitable. Did people really not noticed the B word allowing Vicky to pass as a boy? I guess so, dude. I mean, I guess, I don't know, but who knows? But a 6 out of 10. Do you know what? That never really troubled me in a story. I wasn't watching it thinking, oh my God, she's going to be found out or anything. It just, yeah.
No, actually, they probably could have played up more to that. It might have given Vicky a bit more substance in the story, wouldn't it? But yeah, they didn't really. Yeah.
Yeah. Titan Sci-Fi, Tom. Short and sweet, says amazing guest cast with Jean Marsh and Julian Glover, but a very forgettable story. 3 out of 10 from Tom.
3? Wow, that's low.
3.
Wow.
Yeah. Chippy T, I was trying to think of a modern episode that fulfilled the educational remit, which is, I suppose, is what has had remit, which I suppose is what this had as one of its aims. Right. Couldn't think of a good modern though. This is okay, possibly a 5. So, the middle of the road for Chippy. So, basically saying, do you think that's the case, dude? So, we had more historicals back in the classic era.
Oh, yeah, I think so. Yeah. Yeah.
From an educational standpoint, I guess. Yeah. That's a good point, Chippy. But a 5 from Chippy. One of our writers, Jordan, says, I quite enjoy this one. It's clear how much the cast are enjoying it, and it's very theatrical. I think it's easily one of the second series' best outings. The Zarbi have their charm, but it's the historical adventures all the way for me in this second series.
Yeah, nice one. Cheers, Jordan.
Nice one, Jordan. And lastly on Twitter, Edward Giluli says, I think it's a really good story with great performances, an underrated gem, 8 out of 10.
Oh, nice. More like
nice, it. Yeah. And thank you very much to you guys over on X or Twitter. And just one over on the Facebook, which was from Darren Sykes. It says, despite half this story missing from the archives, this is one of the better historical adventures. Though sets appear small, the designer has worked miracles in creating all the different locations required. In style, the Crusade is possibly the closest Doctor Who has come to doing a Shakespearean play, and the performances often convey this. I remember enjoying David Whittaker's novelisation of this story, which presented the adventure without the TV limitations of the time. Therefore, I'd rate the story a 7.5 out of 10. P.S. At least we know what happened to one of Scaroth's splinters.
I was thinking that, actually, when we were talking about Scaroth and Julian Glover. Yeah, it could have been, couldn't it?
Yeah.
Could have been one of his splinters, yeah.
Oh, there we go. So, yes, that's what the Big Blue Box listenership thought of the Crusade. And thank you very much, you guys, for your scores. I think the average on this dude is probably going to be a 6 or a 7.
Yeah, not very high scores for this one from the listeners. I do wonder, though, mate, because I said the same, didn't I, that if you'd have asked me to rate it before I rewatched it, my memory of it was, 4, 5. I don't remember much about it. Maybe give it a rewatch. It's quite charming, really. It's quite a charming story.
It is cool. Yeah. Rightio, then that was the Crusade. I'm not sure how many Hartnell stories we've got left to do after this one.
I don't know if we've got any complete ones. We've got Galaxy 4 animation, unless we've already done that. I can't remember now.
No, we haven't. Yes, we've got a couple of animated ones. Yeah, Galaxy 4 and... Is it the Daleks Master Plan? Is that animated?
That's missing. No, that's missing nearly all of the episodes, I think.
Yeah. So we've got Galaxy 4. We'll do that review as an animated story at some point. But we're down to the last Hartnell stuff, dude.
Yeah, I'm just looking at my list here. Yeah, I think Dalek's Master Plan is missing nearly everything, apart from maybe one episode might exist out of the 12. And all the rest of it, Marco Polo, Mythmakers, Massacre, Mission to Unknown, Smugglers, Savages, missing all of their episodes. I didn't realise there was so much. Actually, I always think it's Troughton's era that's hit really hard. But looking at our list, mate, there's quite a few Hartnells that don't exist at all and haven't been animated yet. I mean, Marco Polo, that has been kicked around for ages now, hasn't it? When's that going to get animated? Or
Yeah, that
found,
should
even
be.
better, be found.
Yeah, even better. Yeah, but that should be animated at some point. Surely everyone always bangs on about wanting to see that one.
And when we do, it'll be, that was rubbish.
Yeah.
No, I was sure.
Yeah. Rubbish, that one. Okie dokie. So that wraps up the Crusade. Next week, Bud, what are we going to review then?
So next week, actually talking of animations, so we are going to review an animation next week, and it's the second Doctor's first story, which again, it's criminal that this doesn't exist in the archives, but the best we can do is watch the animation of The Power of the Daleks.
Cool.
Yeah.
Nice one. So this is, if I remember correctly, is a 6, is it 6 or 4 parts?
6, I think.
It is 6, isn't it? Yes. Yeah, I've only seen this once, the animation, when the Blu-rays first dropped.
Yeah, I went to the BFI to see it. Whoa. Way back whenever this came out. Yeah, I haven't watched it for a long time. They did, again, I think they've like tweaked it since, so did like a special edition of it, blah, blah, blah. I'll be watching whatever's on the iPlayer. I assume it's the final edition of it. I don't know.
Yeah. Okie dokie then. So, The Power of the Daleks. Next week, the old second Doctor story. So we'll be watching that. So make sure you get that watched, because I'll be asking for your reviews as always. And on that note, dude, I think we'll wrap there for episode 410.
Alrighty.
Thank you so much for checking out another episode of The Big Blue Box. That was episode 410, and our review of the Crusade and our rundown of some of the events that we've been to over last week, which has been really cool. Next week, as Adam said, it's The Power of the Daleks, the second Doctor story, so get your iPlayer fired up or your Blu-rays ready or your DVDs, as we'll be asking for your thoughts as always. And remember, make sure you are following or subscribing to The Big Blue Box in whatever app you listen to your podcasts on, so that way you won't miss an episode when it lands every single Friday. You can also listen online over at bigblueboxpodcast.co.uk, and you can check out all the articles and reviews from the writing team while you're there. Plus you can link off to the socials. We chat Doctor Who throughout the week, and you can also hop into our free Discord server and chat Doctor Who with those dudes. Also, don't forget to remember to check out my co-host channel. It's over on YouTube and it's called The Geek's Handbag.
The Geek's Handbag. Check out my YouTube channel, also on all the socials, Facebook, Instagram, X/Twitter, and what's the other one? TikTok. Yeah.
Yay.
Oh, TikTok.
Yeah, go and check out Adam's stuff. Loads of cool stuff there. Grab a cup of tea and check out all of his videos. Have an awesome time at Riverside, dude, for some more McCoy action. Should be good.
Looking forward to that.
And we'll hear from you next week about how that went, I'm sure. Okay, until next time then. My name is Gary.
My name's Adam.
And remember...